It's 3:27 in the afternoon. The sun beats down heavily on the Dayen neighborhood, the impenetrable stronghold of Hezbollah. It's just another afternoon. The traffic is hell, the markets are crowded, and life goes on as usual. But in the pockets, on the belts, and on the nightstands of thousands of chosen men, something has just awakened. It's not a latest generation smartphone, it's not a device with satellite global positioning system, it's a black plastic gadget, obsolete technology from the 90s, a peeper, a gold Apollo AR 924 pager. Suddenly, a notification breaks the routine. But it's not an isolated sound. It happens in the supermarket line, it happens inside a barbershop, it happens in a car stopped at a traffic light, it happens all over Lebanon, even in parts of Syria. Thousands of devices vibrating at exactly the same time, in the same instant, in the same second. A macabre orchestra conducted from a computer hundreds of kilometers away. The operative men of the world's most powerful militia react by instinct. Protocol is strict, operational security is vital. They look at their waists, take the small black device, and raise it to eye level to read the small monochrome liquid crystal display screen. The message glows green or blue, it's in Arabic and says, "From command, move immediately to points 17, 18, 19. Allah is with you." It seems to be an urgent mobilization order, a war code. The human brain takes a few milliseconds to process the text, but the reality is that there's no more time. Exactly 18 seconds after the user presses the button to read, the circuit closes. The battery overheats instantly and the screen turns off forever. That afternoon at 3:27. The Hezbollah organization was not attacked by missiles, nor by tanks, nor by infiltrated commandos. It was attacked by its own logistics. In less than 3 seconds, thousands of its commanders, official liaison officers, and elite agents fell to the ground, blind, mutilated, neutralized. Mossad had achieved the impossible, turning the enemy's most reliable security device into a Trojan horse that they carried on their own bodies. Israel called it internally the Taiwanese project. The world knew it as the most sophisticated and terrifying intelligence attack of the 21st century. Today we're going to do an autopsy of this operation. We're going to track down the shell companies in Europe, we're going to dissect the explosive battery, and we're going to get inside the minds of the spies who waited years just to send a text message. I'm Mary, and this is the Cole Plan. To understand the magnitude of this trap, we first have to understand the villain of this story. And I'm not talking about a person, but about a feeling, paranoia. For years, Israeli intelligence, the Mossad and Unit 8200 had demonstrated a terrifying ability to locate anyone, anywhere, as long as they had a mobile phone. A smartphone is essentially a tracking beacon that we willingly carry in our pocket. It has a camera, a microphone, and global positioning system. Did Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah know that? After October 7th and the start of the war in Gaza, his fears skyrocketed. He saw how his commanders in southern Lebanon were eliminated one after another with surgical precision. Simply put, there was no way to hide from the Israeli fighter jets and drones. In February 2024, Nasrallah made the mistake that Israel had been waiting for. He gave a televised speech, visibly upset, where he condemned modern technology. He said, and I quote, "The phone in your hands, in your wife's hands, or in your children's hands is the most dangerous agent. It is a deadly spy. Bury it. Put it in an iron box and lock it." The order was strict. Hezbollah had to go back to the Stone Age, get rid of smartphones, and return to analog technology. Dumb and secure. The Viper pager is perfect on paper. It only receives radio signals, it doesn't transmit them, it doesn't have global positioning system. Simply put, if someone uses one of these, they can't be tracked. Hezbollah thought that by taking a step back in technology, he would become invisible. But intelligence is a game of anticipation. What Nasrallah didn't know is that Israel had been listening and planning for this moment, not since February of that year, 2023, but since 2022. The Mossad knew Paranoia would eventually make Hezbollah change its communication systems, and they decided that when that day came, they wouldn't intercept the order for the Vipers, they would supply the order. This is where one of the most complex social engineering operations in modern history comes into play. Israel couldn't just sell them the devices. Hezbollah was suspicious. They bought through illicit networks, intermediaries, and shell companies. So Mossad created its own reality. Let's travel to Budapest, Hungary. There in May 2022, a company called Back Consulting KFP was registered. If you visited their website, you would see a modern tech consulting firm committed to the environment and connectivity. She had a neat appearance, was a polite woman with impeccable academic background. But if you went to the physical address in Budapest, you would only find a door in a residential building, a paper office. Back Consulting signed a legitimate contract with the Taiwanese company Gold Apollo to manufacture and sell their beepers under license in certain regions of the world. But Gold Apollo knew nothing about it. They thought Back Consulting was just another regular client, but the reality was much darker. Back Consulting was an empty shell controlled by Israeli intelligence from Tel Aviv. For many months, they manufactured regular beepers for regular clients to keep up appearances. But when the order from Hezbollah came in, the production line changed. Those 5,000 units weren't made in Gold Apollo's usual factories. They were made in clandestine workshops, specifically designed to insert terror into the circuits. Let's talk about how a modern Trojan horse is built. Because putting a bomb in such a small device and having it still work is a masterpiece of military engineering with the finest Israeli touch. The technical challenge was enormous. First, the device had to work perfectly. It had to turn on, receive messages, vibrate, and have a long-lasting battery. If it failed, Hezbollah would discard it. Second, it had to be undetectable. Hezbollah was very suspicious and had security equipment. They scanned their purchases with X-rays at the Beirut airport. They checked all kinds of components. How did they do it? Engineers from Unit 8200 and the Mossad didn't tape on a block of C4. That would be amateurish. They focused on the lithium battery. They designed a modified battery, identical to the original. It looked harmless, but inside it was deadly. They reduced the chemical volume of lithium, which made the battery last a little less, but within acceptable margins. And in that freed up space, they injected pentaerythritol tetranitrate sheets. Pentaerythritol tetranitrate is one of the most powerful military explosives that exist. It's stable, but devastating. They use between 3 to 5 grams per device. It doesn't seem like much, but attached to the body, it's enough to cause lethal damage to any limb or leave the patient unconscious. But the master touch was the camouflage. To fool the X-rays, they wrapped the explosive in a special epoxy resin doped with an organic compound that looked just like plastic on the scanner. And the normal chemicals of a battery? To airport security, it looked like a battery, nothing more than that. They also integrated a microscopic detonator and a thermal switch inside the power management circuit itself. It didn't require a complex external radio signal. The text message itself, a specific alphanumeric code string, would activate the kill switch, the button. The devices arrived in Lebanon. In the spring of 2024, Hezbollah distributed them. The commanders put them on their belts. For 5 months they lived with the bomb, they slept with it on the nightstand, the beepers accompanied them to the market, they traveled to Syria and Iran with it. Literally, they were inseparable. Mossad had its finger on the button the whole time, but they didn't press it. They were waiting for the moment of maximum usefulness. But then the inevitable happened. The plan almost collapsed. In August 2024, Israeli intelligence noticed an anomaly, making 2 Hezbollah operatives suspicious. One of them noticed that the beepers were getting hotter than usual and their batteries were draining quickly. Before they could file an official report that would have triggered a general alarm, the infiltrators reported it to the central base. And then these two operatives were neutralized in an isolated incident in true Mossad style. But the hourglass had broken. If a technician opened this battery and found the PTN, the whole plan of years would go down the drain. And even worse, Hezbollah would find out that their communications were compromised. The dilemma reached the desk of Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Galan. Use them now or lose them forever. The decision was finally made. September 17 would be the day of terror. So we go back to the moment of detonation. When the signal arrives, it doesn't just activate the silencer, it activates the terror. The hospitals in Beirut collapsed within minutes. The injuries were specific, patterns that doctors had never seen on such a scale. Injuries to the face from looking at the message, injuries to the hands from holding the device, injuries to the waist from carrying it on the belt, injuries to the legs from carrying it in the pockets. It wasn't an indiscriminate massacre, it was a massive amputation of the group's operational capacity. Hezbollah, thousands of fighters were left blind. They lost the fingers with which they pulled the trigger. Hezbollah's command and control network disappeared in a cloud of smoke and confusion. Even the Iranian ambassador in Lebanon, who was carrying one of these beepers, confirms how deep the network goes. He was injured and lost an eye. The message was clear, no one was safe. But the tactical capability of the operation didn't end there. Hezbollah was in shock. They went into total panic. They gave the order to turn off all the beepers and throw them away because there was a small percentage that didn't detonate. They thought the nightmare had ended that Tuesday, but they were wrong. The next day, Wednesday, September 18th, mass funerals were held for the victims of the previous day. Crowds were crying, yellow flags were everywhere, and there were speeches about revenge. In the midst of mourning, the explosions started again. This time, they weren't beepers, they were walkie-talkies, portable radios model ICOM ICV-82, which were used for event security and military coordination. These devices were bigger, more robust, which means more space. The explosive charge was greater. Radios exploding in the hands of security guards during funerals, cars catching fire, apartments blowing up, or radios being charged in kitchens next to gas canisters. The psychological impact was devastating. An Israeli intelligence officer detailed it. But in reality, after the second day, they were even afraid of the air conditioners. The organization collapsed mentally. They disconnected the internet, turned off the generators, and banned any electronic devices. Hezbollah, the most feared paramilitary force in the Middle East, was reduced to communicating with paper notes and motorcycle messengers as if they were in 1914. They were blind, deaf, crippled, and in many cases even lame. And worst of all, they were terrified, suspecting even their own shadow. Operation Core Plan will go down in history not only for its technical audacity, but also because it changed the rules of the game forever. Israel showed that in 21st century warfare, you don't need to be on the battlefield to strike the enemy. It showed that global supply chains can be turned into a weapon. That the most innocent object bought from a supplier, even if it's legitimate, can be a death sentence. Hezbollah tried to hide in the darkness of low technology to avoid Israel's digital spies, but they discovered, paying a very high price, that Mossad also controls that darkness. This operation showed that Israel's enemies no longer have safe places or secure technologies. If they buy it, if they use it, if they hold it in their hand, they can get to them. Modern warfare is no longer just about who has the biggest missiles, it's about who controls the chips, the batteries, and the final message. So this is what really happens when technology and war collide. Want to see more stories like this? So subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and of course share this video. Don't leave without giving it a like.